I didn't even recognize her voice at first. She was crying on the phone, and I had to pull it away from my ear to make sure I had dialed the right number. She wasn't home. She was supposed to be home. But at 3:14 in the morning, I was standing in the kitchen, barefoot on cold tile, staring at the front door like it owed me an explanation. And she was somewhere else, sobbing into the receiver, saying words I couldn't process in order. It was a mistake. It wasn't planned. It didn't mean anything. It only happened once. I didn't ask. I never asked. She just confessed. Like it was a burden she needed to lift right then and there. As if I was some kind of priest with a fridge full of Gatorade and a rosary made of unpaid utility bills. I listened. That's all I could do. My mouth was full of questions, but my throat had locked the door and swallowed the key. So I just stood there, listening. I heard a man's voice in the background. Calm. Deep. Not yelling. Just existing. Too close for comfort. She said, "Don't," to him. Then she whispered to me, "Please don't hang up." I didn't. Because hanging up meant it was real. Hanging up meant there was something to walk away from. Hanging up meant I'd have to move. And think. And maybe fall to the floor. She said she was sorry. Not in a tearful, broken way. In a panicked, performative way. Like someone trying to return an item at a store without a receipt. All apologies, no accountability. And the worst part? I still wanted to believe her. Not believe what she did. No, that part was clear. But believe that somehow this was salvageable. That maybe this was just some dream I hadn't woken up from yet. That maybe the wine glass she dropped at dinner the night before had been a warning. That maybe I should have kissed her differently this past week. That maybe it was me. Then I heard the door. Not our door. His. The line went quiet. I think she put her hand over the mic. But I heard it. The goodbye? His, not hers. And I knew. It wasn't just a hotel. It wasn't just a mistake. It was a night she planned to not come home. I waited until the line disconnected on its own. Then I went to our bedroom. Not to cry. Not to scream. I opened her nightstand drawer. And what I found there will haunt me more than anything she said. I'll tell you what it was in part 2. And no, it wasn't underwear or hotel receipts. It was something worse. Something with a heartbeat. I don't know what I expected to find when I opened her nightstand. Maybe nothing. Maybe a crumpled receipt, a note, or God forbid, a hotel room key. Something tangible. Something with numbers or a name. Something I could point at and say, this is where everything fell apart. But it wasn't paper. It was alive. A kitten. A tiny gray kitten, wrapped in a soft towel, fast asleep with its body curled into a ball like it had no idea it was the eye of a hurricane. I just stood there, blinking at it like some sleep-deprived ghost. My brain couldn't register what I was seeing. A part of me thought I was hallucinating. But no, it stretched and yawned. It was real. Breathing. Warm. In our house. We don't have a cat. We've never had a cat. She's allergic to them. Or at least, she always claimed she was. She made a huge deal out of that every time our kids begged for a pet. "I'll break out in hives just being near one," she used to say. "Don't even think about it." So what the hell was this? I gently pulled the drawer out a little further and noticed a small folded envelope tucked beside the towel. No name on it. Inside was a note, handwritten, in pen I didn't recognize. She said you'd be alone tonight. Feed her every 6 hours. She's yours now. Name her anything but after her. No signature. Nothing else. I just sat on the floor, kitten blinking up at me like it was asking questions I couldn't answer. My heart pounded. My thoughts spiraled. What kind of sick inside joke was this? She left me to spend the night with another man. And he left a living creature in her drawer like it was some consolation prize? And worse, she knew. She knew I'd find it. She didn't lock the drawer. She didn't hide it. She wanted me to discover it. To take care of it. To accept it. Like this was all some twisted metaphor. Like I was supposed to cradle a consequence that purrs. I sat with the kitten for almost an hour, trying to understand what kind of person does this. What kind of person cheats, lies, and then leaves behind something so soft, innocent, purposeful. When she came home the next morning, still wearing the jacket she left in, she acted like nothing happened. No apology. No explanation. She walked past me and into the bathroom without saying a word. Like she had just returned from a grocery run. But when she saw the kitten sitting in my lap, curled against my hoodie, she stopped in the doorway. Not surprised. Not guilty. She just smiled, so softly it made my skin crawl, and said, "So, what did you name her?" That's when I snapped. Not violently. Not loudly. Quietly. The kind of quiet that feels heavier than a scream. I stood up, placed the kitten gently on the couch, and looked her dead in the eyes. I didn't name her, I said. She's not mine. And Marla tilted her head like a curious child, like I had missed the point of some riddle. Everything in this house is yours, she whispered. Even the mistakes. That line. That line. It burned into my skull like acid. I wanted to shout, to shake her, to ask if she had lost her mind. But I couldn't, because some small, cowardly part of me didn't want to hear what she'd say next. Instead, I locked myself in the laundry room for 3 hours, pretending to fix a washing machine that wasn't broken. The kitten scratched at the door once. Just once. And that night, Marla slept like a baby. I didn't sleep at all, because I had just realized something. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a one-time mistake. She was planning something, and I was already a character in it. What came next proved that beyond any doubt. The next few days blurred into one long, nauseating loop. I walked around the house like a ghost wearing my own skin, quietly existing while trying to understand what version of reality I had stepped into. Marla, meanwhile, moved with an unnerving sense of calm. No guilt. No panic. She hummed while making coffee. She watered her plants like nothing had happened. She even invited Maggie over for wine one evening, sitting on the porch and laughing like she didn't spend a night in another man's arms, then come home and hand me a kitten like a peace offering wrapped in fur. And yes, the kitten stayed. I wanted to get rid of it. I even put it in a cardboard box and drove halfway to the local shelter. But it started meowing, this tiny, weak sound, like it was apologizing for being dragged into all of this. I pulled over, sat on the shoulder for 20 minutes, then turned around and brought it back. I told myself it wasn't about forgiveness. I just didn't want to abandon one more thing this week. But the feeling that something was fundamentally wrong with Marla didn't go away. In fact, it started to multiply. That Friday, I came home from work early. She was in the living room with her laptop open, watching some true crime documentary about a woman poisoning her husband with thallium. She didn't even notice me walk in. She was writing something on a notepad, nodding to herself, and mouthing the words as she wrote them. When I asked what she was doing, she smiled and said, taking notes for a novel idea. I didn't ask more. I didn't want to know. Later that night, I tried to log into our joint bank account. The password had been changed. Then I checked the mortgage account. Same story. Finally, I opened the front door and walked out onto the porch, just to breathe, just to get some fresh air and feel the sky not crushing down on me. And when I tried to walk back in, the deadbolt was engaged. From the inside. Now I know what you're thinking. I must have imagined it. Maybe I pulled the door too hard or too soft. Maybe I triggered something accidentally. But no. I tried the door 3 more times. I even knocked. Nothing. I walked around the side, climbed over the fence into the backyard, and entered through the sliding door off the kitchen, which we never lock because the mechanism sticks. She was sitting at the table, calm, sipping tea, scrolling through her phone like it was just another Thursday evening. Did you lock the front door? I asked. She didn't look up. Yeah. I was outside. I know, she said, still scrolling. But you came back, didn't you? I stood there, stunned. My mouth opened, then closed again. I couldn't find the right combination of words to respond to that. So I just walked past her, up the stairs, and into our bedroom, where the kitten had taken to curling up in my spot on the bed like it had seniority. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I checked the drawer again. The notepad she had been writing on during the documentary? It was there. I opened it. She wasn't writing a novel. She was keeping a list. It had dates, times, names. On the second page, I found mine. And next to it, in parentheses, she had written, still doesn't know, or pretends not to. There were tally marks next to that line. 6 of them. I don't know what they meant. And that terrified me more than anything. I put the notepad back exactly how I found it and left for work without saying goodbye. When I got into the van, my hands shook so badly I couldn't hold my coffee. The thought that someone you trust might be playing a long, careful game behind your back is one thing. But knowing they're documenting it, cataloging your confusion like it's part of some long experiment, that's a different kind of betrayal. I tried calling Maggie that day, not to ask questions, just to hear another voice. Someone else who had known Marla for years. Maybe to confirm I hadn't lost my mind. Maybe to see if Maggie would slip up and say something, anything, that would break the spell. But she didn't answer. Instead, I I got a voicemail that said, "You've reached Maggie. If this is Elwood, stop calling me. I don't want to be involved in this anymore." I hadn't called her in months. I hadn't involved her in anything. That's when I knew Marla was not only hiding things, she was building a version of me behind my back, feeding people lies, rewriting the narrative before I even understood the plot. And the next move she made, it changed everything. By Monday morning, I was already starting to feel like a supporting character in my own life. I'd wake up, shower, dress, leave for work like a good husband is supposed to. But inside I was unraveling, quietly, one string at a time. The kind of unraveling that doesn't make noise. It just thins you out until you're barely a shadow. And somehow, even then, I still wanted to believe it was salvageable. I clung to the idea that maybe Marla was going through some kind of breakdown, that she needed therapy, that maybe the cheating, the kitten, the weird notebook, the bank passwords, maybe all of it was her way of asking for help without knowing how to ask. But that illusion shattered just before lunch break. I was halfway through my shift, installing a ductless system in an elderly woman's guest house, when my foreman, Denny, called me over. He wasn't smiling. He was holding a paper bag in his hand, my name scribbled across the front in Marla's handwriting. "El," he said slowly, "this just got dropped off by a courier. Said it was urgent." My heart stuttered. I took it, opened it. Inside was my usual sandwich, a thermos of coffee, and a small envelope tucked beside a folded napkin. I opened it. The note read, "Hope today is less miserable than your face looked this morning. Be nicer to me tonight, or I'll show the group chat I'm fine crying selfies. Love you. M." I stared at the words for a solid minute. I could feel Denny's eyes on me, waiting for some kind of explanation. I laughed awkwardly, muttered something about Marla being sarcastic, and shoved the note in my back pocket. But the truth was, I had no idea what she was talking about. What group chat? What selfies? I hadn't cried in front of her since our last big argument, 3 weeks ago, tops. And even then, I definitely didn't take pictures of myself. I didn't even have photos like that on my phone. But now the guys on my crew were side-eyeing me during lunch, nudging each other and laughing quietly while I sat there pretending nothing was happening. And I knew she had sent them something. When I got home that night, I confronted her. Not angry, not yelling, just exhausted. "What did you send to my coworkers?" She looked up from the couch, remote in hand, one eyebrow raised like I'd just asked the stupidest question imaginable. "What are you talking about?" she asked, flipping the channel. "I sent you a sandwich and a love note." "That wasn't a love note." She smiled. "Depends how you read it." "No, don't play this game with me, Marla. What's going on? What are you trying to do to me?" She stood up slowly, walked over, and placed her hand on my chest like we were in a rom-com about to kiss under the rain. But there was no affection in her eyes. Only calculation. "I'm making things interesting," she whispered. I stepped back. She laughed. "You were getting boring," she added. "Routine. Predictable. I needed some spice. And don't act like you didn't love the attention today. Denny always liked you too much anyway." I felt something snap behind my eyes. Not rage. Not despair. Something emptier than that. Something cold and rubbery, like a snapped tendon that doesn't hurt right away but leaves your body dangling wrong. I turned and walked out without saying another word. That night, I drove aimlessly. I parked at a gas station 3 towns over and sat in the car for hours, phone in my lap, debating whether to call someone. My brother, my old friend Tom, even my dad. But I didn't. Because how do you explain something that sounds like a bad psychological thriller? How do you tell someone your wife is slowly erasing your credibility one gaslight at a time? I came back home just before 2 a.m. The porch light was off, the door unlocked. I walked inside quietly and found her standing in the kitchen, back turned, whispering into her phone. She didn't hear me come in. She said, "He still thinks it was just one time." I almost feel bad at this point. I didn't confront her. I didn't interrupt. I just stood there, in the dark, and listened to her lie. To someone else. About me. And in that moment, I knew something I hadn't let myself admit until now. This wasn't just infidelity. This was a dismantling. She wasn't cheating on me. She was removing me. Bit by bit. Word by word. Action by action. And the next move she made would prove that without a doubt. Because the next day, someone called Child Protective Services and told them I had become unfit. It started like any other weekday morning, except I had slept in my van parked 2 blocks away. I couldn't bring myself to go back inside the house the night before. I just sat in the driver's seat with a throw blanket from the trunk and the kitten curled up on the dashboard like a confused co-pilot. I didn't sleep, but I guess I drifted, because when I woke up, there was condensation on the windows and a sharp ache behind my eyes like something was trying to claw its way out of my skull. I drove back to the house just after 8, thinking I'd sneak in, grab a change of clothes, maybe a few documents, anything I'd need if I decided not to come back for a while. I wasn't expecting a welcome. I wasn't even expecting a fight. I was expecting silence. But what I found instead was a black SUV parked neatly in our driveway, with 2 strangers standing at the front door, holding clipboards and badges. Marla was already there, answering the door like she'd been waiting for them. She was wearing one of her soft blue sweaters, the kind she always used when she wanted to look warm and maternal. Her hair was pulled back. Her voice, when I heard it from the sidewalk, was light and concerned. She looked like a woman who just wanted to protect her kids. She didn't see me at first. Neither did they. So I stayed on the sidewalk and watched. The woman from the agency nodded politely as Marla handed her something. A folder, I think. She was smiling. Genuinely smiling. Not the cold little smirk she'd been giving me for weeks, but a pleasant, sweet smile like she was hosting a bake sale. Then she turned and saw me. Her smile didn't fade. She actually waved. "Elle," she called out. "Come meet the agents." Agents. The word hit me wrong. I walked up the path slowly, trying to appear casual while adrenaline coursed through my arms and legs like I was walking into a courtroom with no lawyer. The woman introduced herself as Miss Jenner. The man with her didn't say much. He just nodded and glanced down at the clipboard. "We received a call from someone concerned about the emotional well-being of your children," she said gently. Said the father had become unstable, detached, erratic. I couldn't speak. Marla placed a hand over her heart like she was shocked. "I don't know who would say such a thing," she said. "He's been under stress lately, but he loves the kids. Don't you, Elle?" I looked at her and saw it then, something behind her eyes. Not fear, not regret, anticipation. She wanted this. She wanted me to push back, to get angry, to raise my voice, to make a scene on the front porch in front of 2 government agents. But I didn't. I smiled, poorly, and nodded. Of course I love them. More than anything. Jenner asked if they could come inside, and Marla practically skipped into the house to prepare everything. She poured lemonade. She offered them banana bread like they were brunch guests. She answered every question about our parenting routine with alarming precision. Bedtimes, screen time limits, school schedules. It was all rehearsed. It was a performance, and a damn good one. I sat there quietly, answering questions when asked, trying not to look like a man whose life was being disassembled in slow motion. Eventually, Jenner asked if she could speak to me privately. Marla agreed. She took the kids out to the backyard, letting them play on the swings while humming to herself. Through the window, she looked like any other mom. If you didn't know any better, you'd think she was picture perfect. In the other room, Jenner asked me questions I never imagined I'd have to answer. Was I drinking more lately? Was I sleeping? Had I ever lashed out verbally or physically? Had I ever left the kids unsupervised? I answered as calmly as I could. But I could tell, some of it had already been planted. She wasn't just here because someone made an anonymous call. She was here because Marla had prepared for this. I knew it then. This wasn't just a petty punishment for cheating. This was a chess game, and she was several moves ahead. When they left, Marla turned to me in the kitchen, her voice low and almost pitying. "You should start packing," she said. "They'll be back next week for a follow-up. It'd be better if you weren't living here when they do." I didn't move. "You're trying to erase me," I said. She tilted her head. "Don't be so dramatic. I never touched them. I never." She cut me off. "I didn't say you did. But when people feel unsafe, Elle, they don't wait for bruises." That night, I packed a single duffel bag and left. And she watched me from the porch the entire time. Not crying. Not sad. Just victorious. I stayed at a cheap motel 30 minutes away, staring at the ceiling all night, trying to make sense of how my marriage had turned into a slow-motion crime scene. But the final straw wasn't the CPS visit. It wasn't the lies. It was the video I received on my phone 2 days later, an anonymous number, 1 minute long. And in that video, I saw something that made my hands go numb. The motel room smelled like bleach and something faintly metallic, like old coins or dried blood. I hadn't slept in the bed since the first night. I started sleeping on top of the covers, fully clothed, shoes on, phone in my hand like I was waiting for someone to pull the fire alarm on reality. I was too afraid to dream. Too afraid I'd dream of her. Not Marla as she was now, but Marla as she used to be. The version I had built in my mind over a decade of love, compromise, and lies I thought were small. On Wednesday afternoon, the message came. No name. No subject. Just a text from a number I didn't recognize with a video attached. I hesitated for a moment before pressing play, thinking it might be some spam ad or malware. But the preview image, a grainy still of my own living room, made my chest tighten instantly. I hit play. The footage was shaky, like it had been filmed in secret. The angle looked slightly off, like it was recorded from a hidden phone left on a shelf. At first, I couldn't figure out what I was looking at. Marla was standing in the middle of the room, arms folded, pacing. She looked agitated, like she was waiting for someone to say the wrong thing. Then, a voice came into frame. A man's voice. Familiar. Glenn. I didn't need to see him to know it. His cocky, too smooth cadence was unmistakable. He was talking casually, like they were recapping something mundane. But the conversation quickly spiraled into something far darker. She's gonna eat it up, Glenn said, sitting down on the couch. You act heartbroken, you show them that kitten, you throw in a couple tears about your unsafe husband, and bam. Sympathy. Clean split. You keep the house, the kids, maybe even get spousal. Marla laughed. Actually laughed. Not nervously. Not guiltily. She laughed like someone told a good joke at brunch. I'm telling you, she said, he'll crumble. Elwood's the type who'll apologize for bleeding if you stab him right. My stomach twisted. My ears rang. I paused the video, unable to breathe. My heart was slamming against my ribs like it was trying to run for the door before the rest of me caught up. I started the video again and forced myself to watch the rest. Marla talked about planting ideas, about strategic instability, about shaping the narrative. She used those words. Clinical. Practiced. Words no ordinary person uses in the context of ending a marriage. And then Glenn said something I can't stop hearing. It's actually kinda hot, you know. The whole villain vibe. Like, weaponized motherhood. Love it. The video ended with Marla leaning over to kiss him. The same lips she used to kiss my forehead when I was too tired to stand after work. I sat there, jaw clenched, vision blurred, phone shaking in my hand, and realized something far worse than infidelity was at play here. This wasn't just a betrayal of our vows. This was a performance, a production, a carefully coordinated strategy designed not to hurt me, but to erase me. She wasn't reacting to some sudden emotional affair or spark with Glenn. She was calculating my destruction, step by step, like I was a chess piece she'd finally outmaneuvered. And the video wasn't sent to me first. No, my coworker Denny texted me that evening, asking, "Man, you okay? Just saw that clip floating around. That your wife talking about you like you're some stalker?" I didn't respond. Instead, I opened our old cloud storage account, the one we used to share for family photos, and found it completely wiped. Every video of the kids, every picture from our wedding, every memory, gone. I called the number that sent me the video. It rang twice, then disconnected. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I wrote a letter. Not to Marla, not to Glenn, to my kids. Because if I lost them too, I needed them to know, one day, when they're old enough, that their father wasn't the villain in the story their mother wrote for herself. But I couldn't deliver the letter. Because the next morning, I was served court papers, restraining order, temporary custody suspension, and a witness list with names I never expected, including my brother. She got to him too. But I wasn't done. Not yet. Because someone had slipped me that video, and I was about to find out who. The restraining order was hand-delivered by a courier wearing a rain poncho. It wasn't raining. It hadn't rained in days. But I guess there was something poetic about that. A guy in a plastic shield delivering a document that stripped me of everything I thought made me a man. My home, my kids, my right to be believed. He handed it to me like it was an invitation to a party I never wanted to attend, then turned and walked off without a word. I didn't open it right away. I didn't need to. I already knew what it would say, that I was to stay at least 100 yards away from the property, that I was prohibited from contacting Marla directly, that any violation would result in arrest. But it wasn't until I saw my brother's name on the witness list that the air left my lungs like a balloon that had been stepped on. We weren't close, but we weren't enemies. He lived 3 states away. We texted a few times a year. He'd send me memes about bad coffee or cringe dad jokes, and I'd send back a thumbs up emoji. That was our dynamic. Safe. Simple. But apparently, Marla had reached out to him 3 weeks ago, the same day I first confronted her, and told him I was slipping, that I was forgetting things, that I had violent outbursts. He never asked me about it. He never checked in. He signed a statement and submitted it through a notarized email. So when my phone buzzed later that night with a blocked call, I didn't want to answer. But something, instinct, dread, desperation, made me pick up. A voice I didn't recognize spoke first. Male. Mid-30s. Nervous. Like he was doing something he wasn't sure he had the guts to finish. Is this Elwood? I froze. Who is this? I can't talk long. I sent you the video. I used a burner SIM. Don't try to trace it. Why? I asked, my voice cracked and raw. Why help me? He paused, then said something that sounded rehearsed, like he'd been waiting for the moment, maybe even fearing it. Because I was the first. I didn't understand. The first what? The first one she did this to. That stopped me cold. For a second, I thought I had misheard him. But no. His voice was steady now, calmer, like he had finally gotten something off his chest. She used a different name back then. Same tactics. Love bombing, manipulation, mental health claims, anonymous reports to HR, legal leverage, friend turnarounds. I lost my apartment, my job, and almost ended up on a psych hold because of what she did. But I never had proof. You do. My mouth was dry. What's your name? I can't say. She still watches. Still listens. You're not her first story, Elwood. You're just the one she got better at writing. Then the line went dead. I sat on the edge of the motel bed for nearly an hour, holding the phone like it was a grenade that hadn't gone off. I replayed the message over and over in my head, wondering how much of it was real. But deep down I knew. The patterns, the calculated language, the way Marla had turned every friend into a stranger. It was too sharp, too rehearsed to be spontaneous. She wasn't reacting to a bad marriage. She was building something. A version of me that could be erased, replaced, and eventually rewritten into nothing but a footnote in her next relationship. That night, I went to the one place I swore I wouldn't, my old workplace. It was closed. The parking lot was empty, but I still had the spare key Denny gave me years ago. I wasn't breaking in. I wasn't stealing. I was looking for cameras. See, Marla had visited my shop 3 times in the past 2 months. Once to bring me lunch, once to drop off papers, and once to say hi. She was always pleasant, always smiling. But those were the same days coworkers started giving me weird looks. The same days rumors began spreading that I was emotionally unstable. I found the archive drive in the back room, near the breaker box. It took 40 minutes of navigating folders, timestamped files, and low-resolution frames. But I found it. Her, standing in the back hallway, speaking to someone off camera. A tech. I recognized the shirt. She handed him something. A flash drive. And then, he walked straight into my office, plugged it into my work computer, and walked out. When I checked the system logs, I saw the edits. Files gone. Emails missing. One folder, a private one where I stored receipts, financial notes, and scanned documents for a custody backup plan, had been completely wiped. She hadn't just sabotaged my reputation. She had preemptively erased my ability to defend myself. And now, it was my word versus hers in a world where her voice came dressed in soft sweaters and lemon-scented charm, and mine came wrapped in motel blankets and allegations. But I wasn't going to go quietly, because somewhere in all this chaos, someone else knew, and they were about to come forward. I didn't sleep the night after I found the surveillance footage. I couldn't. I sat at a gas station 5 blocks from my old job, the flash drive in my jacket pocket, and stared through the windshield like answers were written in the mist forming on the glass. Somewhere along the edge of panic and exhaustion, something clicked into place. Not rage. Not revenge. Resolve. If Marla wanted me to vanish, from my home, my kids, my past, then the only thing I could do now was become unignorable. I started by calling Denny. He didn't answer at first, probably assuming I was about to lash out. But when I finally got him on the line, I didn't accuse. I didn't beg. I just asked for 5 minutes. One chance to show him the footage. He met me behind the shop that evening, still in his coveralls, arms crossed like a man preparing for a storm. I handed him the flash drive and said, "Don't say anything until you've seen everything." He didn't say anything for 15 minutes. When he looked up, his eyes were wide, and for the first time in weeks, he saw me. Not the broken man Marla had painted, but the one he'd known for years. Honest, quiet, loyal. This is huge, Elle, he said. You need to take this to someone. I will, I said. But not just someone. Because I had already sent copies to a lawyer I found through a men's legal support network. I had shared the video with the anonymous sender, the man Marla hurt before me, and he confirmed details that lined up with her old name, her travel history, even photos. He wasn't a ghost. He was real. And so was her pattern. The next part moved quickly. With the help of the legal aid team, we filed an emergency motion. The restraining order was reviewed, the credibility of the allegations questioned. The video, the deleted files, the manipulation, all of it was submitted to the court. And when we finally got a hearing, she walked in still wearing that soft blue sweater, still smiling like she was the calm in a storm only she had summoned. But the moment the judge played the video, the moment Glenn's voice filled the courtroom, her expression fractured. And for the first time since this all began, Marla looked afraid. It wasn't a perfect victory. The system doesn't hand those out like candy. But the restraining order was lifted. My custody rights were reinstated temporarily, with joint supervision. A second hearing was scheduled for a full review. And more importantly, the narrative had changed. I wasn't the man unraveling anymore. I was the man who survived. 3 weeks later, I moved into a small rental on the edge of town. Not much to look at, but it had a porch, and the kids liked the wildflowers in the yard. They visited on weekends. We made pancakes from scratch and burned the first batch every time. We stayed up too late watching movies they weren't quite old enough for. And the kitten? She came with me. They named her Clover. I don't tell them everything. Not yet. They're too young to understand the politics of manipulation and pain and betrayal masquerading as heartbreak. But one day, I'll explain it gently. I'll tell them that people aren't always who they say they are. That sometimes love comes wearing a mask. That strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just refuses to lie down. As for Marla, she's still out there, probably finding another target. Someone new to mold, rewrite, and erase. But I'm no longer afraid of her. I've taken back my voice, my dignity, my truth. And here's the irony. She wanted to make me disappear. But now, my story is recorded, preserved, witnessed. She made me unforgettable. And that is something she'll never undo.